What's up, everybody? In today's video, I want to share with you the two new pieces of equipment that I recently purchased for the processing of venison. And I'm adding these two pieces to my arsenal. That also includes a 5-pound stuffer, a grinder, and a vacuum sealer. And these two pieces of equipment are the 7.5-inch slicer and the 10 tray dehydrator from Meet Your Maker. First, I'll go over some of the specs on both pieces of these equipment, and then I will share with you my experience so far. I've ran about 45 pounds of meat through these things, so I've got a good deal of experience with them, and I'll let you know some of the pros and cons and hopefully help you guys make a decision on whether you'd like to purchase these or not. If you're subscribers of the channel, you've probably seen our last video where we were able to take down 3 different bucks in 10 days. And that's where all this 45 pounds of meat came from. I've been really busy the last month or so, I would say, going through and making Slim Jims, jerky, deer bacon, just regular ground venison. So that was one key on why I did purchase the slicer and also the dehydrator. I wanted to get a variety in there and not just be left with ground venison this year. I wanted to add in the bacon and also the jerky. So to do both of those and to make things way easier on myself, I picked up the slicer and the dehydrator. Now you could make both of those products without either of those pieces of equipment. You could just use an oven. You could use a knife to make your slices. But, I figured as long as I'm going to be doing this, and year after year, it's probably going to save me hours, if not days, in the long run. So I picked up both of these pieces, and I figured that I would share my experience with them with you. So we'll go ahead and start out with the slicer. I went with the 7.5-inch slicer. There's also a 10-inch slicer, but for me, all I really needed it for was to make the venison bacon and to also cut my round chunks into jerky pieces. So the slicer came in at about $130. I believe that was on sale. It might be a little bit cheaper around like Black Friday, Cyber Monday. If you're looking for a deal, just keep that in mind. The slicer measures around 16 inches long by 11 inches in width, and it's about 12 inches tall, and it weighs somewhere around 11 pounds. So it's a relatively lightweight with a small footprint device. It's not going to take up a ton of counter space, but it does have a couple moving pieces on it, so it's probably something that you're not going to want to leave just sitting out on your counter. So each corner on the bottom features like a rubber suction cup that does a really nice job of holding the device to the counter, and it's not going to be sliding around on you and causing issues while the blade's turning. So that's a good feature on there, and I gotta say it works really well. So something else that's really nice about this is just the simplicity of it. It's my first time operating a slicer, and I have to say it was really, really easy to figure out. I mean, within a couple of minutes, I almost felt like a pro. I don't know what a pro butcher is like or a pro slicer is like, but I got a feeling that they're not much better when it comes to figuring this thing out. So the thickness gauge on the backside, it makes it really easy to go from slices that are paper thin all the way up to about a 1/2 inch. And the maximum length you can get out of this thing is going to be around 7 inches. And so far, no issues on what we've been cutting. And I can say that one of my concerns coming into this whole deal was the fear of cutting a finger or cutting yourself basically with the blade. It just seems like a dangerous device when you're looking at it online. And the plastic handguard that comes with it and the way that the blade's set up, it makes you feel comfortable and almost impossible to get hurt on it, knock on wood. So my experience with the slicer so far has been nothing but good. I have a few complaints, which I'll tell you in a second, but I've used it to slice partially frozen venison into paper thin, like 1/8 inch to 3/16 of an inch jerky slices, and haven't ran into any issues with that. The other instance I used it was to slice cooked venison bacon, and it did really well, other than making a mess with all the juices and the seasonings that were coming off the bacon. But other than like having to clean this thing up, it performs really well, and there really isn't a whole lot to complain about. And none of those things are deal breakers as far as the complaints go, but I feel like I should mention them. And the first is to do with the stainless steel blade. I haven't had issues with it so far, and I really don't plan on it for a while. But I think as time goes on, the blade is probably going to dull up a little bit. And from what I'm seeing online, is that the replacement blades are only available through like a third party on Amazon, and there's no type of sharpener made available either by Meet Your Maker for these. So if they come out with something like that, I'll be sure to let you guys know in the description. But for now, that's just something to keep in mind if you plan on using this over the years. My only other complaint is the plastic guard is just kind of a pain. When you go to store it, it wants to slide off the dedicated spot for you to store it. There's nothing really holding it in place. It would have been nice to have like a clip or something, but a piece of tape will end up holding it in place. It's just a headache whenever that thing's falling off on the floor and you feel like you're going to break it. But both of those things, not big issues, and the overall performance of the slicer has not let me down yet. So it did take me a while to justify purchasing the slicer. I knew that I wasn't really going to be using it more than a couple times a year, and that I had to think long and hard about it. But I also thought about all the time spent over the coming years and over this year of me trying to get consistent slices out of a product that I've put several hours into grinding and cooking, and just to get a crappy looking slice out of it with a knife, it wasn't going to be good enough for me, basically. So I thought, you know what, if I'm going to go all in, I got to go all in, and I'll pick up this slicer for $120, which when you price that out over the next couple of years and the time saved, I think it's worth it. The second piece of equipment that I picked up was the 10-tray dehydrator. At the time, the 10-tray dehydrator was on sale for about $210, which wasn't too far off the 6-tray dehydrator. Otherwise, I think I would have went with the 6-tray dehydrator to save on footprint and weight. The 10-tray dehydrator is extremely heavy at 43 pounds and is rather large at 21 inches long by 17 inches wide and about 16 and a half inches tall. It was a big challenge for the UPS person to get this out of the van. I had to help them. And that's how heavy this thing is and kind of bulky in the box. So that was a little bit of a pain. And then trying to find a space to put it is also a pain, which we have a big butcher block countertop, but we have a rather small house. So I'm definitely in the need for a pole barn type of setup to where I can just leave that thing out there permanently. But that is something to consider if you're thinking about a 6-tray or a 10-tray dehydrator. I think the 6-tray is going to save you a lot of space, but the 10-tray is going to speed things up quite a bit if you're trying to make jerky. So some of the specs on it are the temperature is like the main one, obviously, and it adjusts in 9-degree increments from 90 degrees all the way up to 167. Those are kind of oddball temperatures, and I'm not really sure the exact reasoning behind all of them, but I have found no issues with it so far. It has a nice LED display and a good timer on it that I believe goes in like half-hour increments. So I think you can set a timer for 30 minutes all the way up to 30 hours. And it also has an auto shut-off feature, so whenever that timer expires, the device will shut down. So if you were going to make something late at night and you weren't wanting to stay up with it, you know that dehydrator is going to shut off for you once the time expires on it. So that's really nice. One thing good about the 10-tray dehydrator is that I've been able to get around 7 to 10 pounds of meat jerky done at one time, and that's when it's fully loaded. And that obviously depends on how you slice it and how you stack them. But with 10 trays, you're going to be able to get things done a lot quicker. You're not going to have to make 3 or 4 cycles to get through. So the jerky gets done pretty quick. It's about a 3-hour process, so it's not all that bad. If you only got to load it twice, you're looking at about overall 6-hour process. But the 10 trays does have its advantage when it comes to being able to process big quantities of meat at once. My only complaint so far with the 10 tray dehydrator, other than the size and the weight, would be that they only send you one tray that's dedicated for fruits and like vegetables, things that are going to have a little bit of stickiness to them when they dry out. And they only send you one tray, so that kind of sucks. It would be nice to have, I don't know, 4 or 5 or 10. Say if you wanted to do solely banana chips or pickles or something like that, you're gonna have to use some parchment paper. You're gonna have to figure out a different method to keep those things from sticking on the stainless steel racks. So yeah, it would be nice if you could buy. I don't know that you can even buy another one of these trays. So that would be something to look into. If you're wanting more of them, you could probably find some aftermarket ones again, or just use the parchment paper. But it would be nice if after spending the $200, you got a little bit more out of the fruit trays. But once again, the company is based around meat, so I understand it a little bit. So that's all I have for you in today's video. I've provided links to both these products in the description. We would get a small commission off of it if you purchase through those links, so that would be much appreciated. But if you have any tips or tricks with these pieces of equipment, or any complaints that you would like to share with the rest of us, go ahead and drop those in the comments below. Until then, we'll see you next time.